I just don't know how to use spreadsheets. So yeah, they make me mad. They frustrate me.
That's right.
Good balance for each other, right, guys? But you're right. There's some crazy times, and yet there's opportunities for new ways to maximize our family time. And we're going to talk more about that today. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. I am Chris Niemeyer here with my good friends, Michael McGreevy, Jamie Slingerland, and Jason Pearl back here. You're going to be hearing his voice more often. Chris McCluskey, we miss you. We know there's a lot going on, and I got to tend to some needs today. But just as a reminder, we are guys who are crazy about our wives. We love our kids, and we want to kill it in business. And this Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast are all about those important domains. Sometimes there could be tension in some of those areas, especially if you're trying to live this extraordinary life. And let's be honest, we're recording here March 30th, 2020. There's been a little bit, possibly extra tension in a lot of households these days because we're in this coronavirus pandemic. There's stay at home or safe at home or whatever your quarantine situation is with your state. But most families now are working from home. The kids are at home. You're trying to figure out schooling and work, and where do you prioritize? How do you make it special family time? So we want to talk about that today as ways to maximize your family time. Guys, I want to turn it over to you to just kick this off because there's so much family time that we have as we're all together in the house. But how do you make that special? What is family time to each of you? Who wants to go first?
Family time. For me, it's making memories. And memories to me include doing fun things together, connecting, sharing experiences together. You know, I'm quality time is one of my big love languages. So if I'm spending quality time with my family and we're having fun, then that's making memories for me. That's what family time is for me.
Yeah, that's good, Michael. And I've seen that all over your Facebook recently. Definitely taking advantage of more family time in your household, but you've made that a theme throughout your family. So kudos to you, Jason. What about you? This is new to you to have all the family home throughout the day, throughout the week. But how do you just normally approach family time?
Family time for us is obviously super important. Ultimately, it's creating something different, a different space. Right now, when we're all working at home, it's very easy to keep your computer up or keep your phone with you and be half in and half out, half in and work, half out, half in with the family, half out. So now that we're home, family time has actually been a little more scheduled, and we've made sure that we are kind of disconnecting from the work aspect of things and really focusing on each other.
You know, Jason, if you had a pool in your backyard, just
Sure.
Go ahead and name it Pearl Harbor. Sorry. All right. We can continue with normal our normal broadcast. Just had to throw that in there.
Squirrel. Always a good joke from McGreevy. No, I like what you emphasized there too, though, Jason, because this is a point that we need to emphasize is ensure that you are separating yourselves from the screen when it comes to family time. Because you're absolutely right. A lot of people are feeling that stress right now and that tension of, I'm trying to keep the kids busy. I'm trying to do this, but I'm tugged back and forth between the work that needs to be done on my laptop or my phone. Or unfortunately, a lot of people checking in on Facebook and the news and whatever. But that's one thing for us in the Niemeyer household. We try to ensure that whatever family time is more intentional, where we're connected to one another and we're disconnected from our screens. It just allows for full presence to happen and conversation to happen. It's a lot harder to have conversation when you're staring at a screen. So good points all around. So let's talk about these 3 ways to maximize family time. And number 1, for some personalities, this will work, but I think really for everyone, we need to approach this in the right frame. And that is to set a schedule. or routines for certain types of activities. So especially if you find yourself for the first time being a home educator with the kids home and maybe telecommuting for the first time, there are some routines like the kids' ongoing schooling, like the projects or whatever you're working on for work that need to happen. And so how do you guys each approach setting a schedule or a routine, or at least some type of framework that helps your family throughout the week?
Yeah, we've talked about this before on other episodes, but it's that weekly meeting time that we have with our wife where we check in, right? I know what's crazy for me now is that the kids have Zoom meetings because Diego's 14 years old. He's upstairs and we needed to set up another office. I mean, it was very rare that Ruthie and I would be doing calls at the exact same time, but now we just can't help it because it's really a cool opportunity for us to get the kids involved, because now they had things on the calendar. So we're just adding more appointments on for everybody. So it's needed more than ever, probably.
No doubt. During a time like this, with everybody kind of sequestered to their own property, routines can really be a way to experience some freedom. That's when things go south for us, is when we don't have boundaries between one activity and the next activity. And we feel like we're in this fluid sort of existence where we're stuck almost. And when we start to break it up and have some boundaries on what we're doing, that really helps us have some variety and some rhythms in our lives that bring some peace. And a few of the things that we've committed to doing is just making sure we get outside every day and move a little bit every day. I can tell when I don't, right? It builds over some time. You start to feel groggy, you start to feel a little bit like sluggish. That's when we're not getting outside. So at least once a day, we take a walk as a family. Even if it's kind of nasty outside, we'll just dress for the weather, bring an umbrella, make sure we get some outside time and some fresh air. Another thing we've been doing a lot is working out, just getting some exercise. And sometimes that's inside the house. Sometimes that's out in the park in an open area. But the kids will jump in and join us. And but Lydia and I make sure that we are both exercising every day, whether that's individually or together, and making that a priority. And Jason, I know you've been doing that too as well. I just saw a post on Facebook of doing that together with your family. Yeah, what's been working for you on the daily schedule?
Yeah, so definitely the outside. And I think given the situation we're in with the pandemic, the most people can do really outside is be in their yards or take a walk around the block. So we've certainly been doing a lot of walks as a family. But we've also been pretty intentional about ensuring that breakfast and lunch are spent together right now in our new schedule and what our new normal looks like. And that's fun because it's, again, working outside of the house and kids being at school. That's a opportunity we haven't really had in the past. So really trying to take advantage of those nuggets at the breakfast table and then at lunch, really blocking out, making sure I'm blocked out for lunchtime with the family. But then the other thing that we've been building in is creative time. Give the kids an opportunity to do something fun and creative. I've got 2 girls, so creative time has equated to makeup one day, and other days it's painting and things like that, but just really kind of engaging into letting the kids be creative and doing those things.
If you were wondering why we were laughing, Jason, it's because you dropped the word nugget in there, and we were joking around a couple of months back about pearls of wisdom and Jason nuggets. So
Phrase of the week: Jason nuggets for breakfast and lunch.
They're not going to be as good as McCluskey's word of the week, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like what you guys are saying about the activity, right? That is something I've heard people complain about, obviously, recently on Facebook, is they feel just so locked into their house. And of course, there's some states where it's a little bit tighter. That's so key, is to get your family outside, especially if you have kids like our ages that are just active and they want to be out and like move and get that energy flowing. So we've been doing, walks right after breakfast and then walks after dinner, just to get out there. And, we just recently moved. So part of it is getting to walk around and see other people out and meet neighbors. And we're like keeping the whole 6 feet, but it's like, hey, what's up? And getting to meet people. And now kids are, playing around the blocks and stuff together appropriately. But it's just it's a time where you've got to set those kind of schedules and boundaries where Michael, to your point earlier, there is some freedom in setting some of these items that you want to do. It just helps shape and frame the calendar a bit more. Because if you say, these are some non-negotiable things we want to do, and then there's going to be areas where we can drop in our work schedule or call schedules or, nap times for the young kids or whatever it's going to be, then you get to fill it in. And I want to move that to this way number 2 to maximize family time is to replace former activities with intentionality now. By former activities, I'm talking about, as our family, we used to be at the soccer field 3 times a week. People involved in church, once or twice a week in the evenings. Whatever that has been taken from your schedule for this short time period, what are you filling that with? I encourage you to look at that with intention, because it's so easy to just get sucked into, well, we throw on the TV a little bit more. We want to check in what's going on in the news. We want to put the screen on. What can you fill in those times that you normally would have been outside the house with some good quality family time? So how do you guys approach this idea of replacing those former activities with something of greater intention?
Yeah, we were talking earlier about breakfast on the weekend, Friday night movie nights. Church on Sunday is a great example. I know the Slingerlands, we did communion yesterday for church. It's like the kids have been to church and they know about the little cups and the bread. And so we did that, and it just filled in the routine kind of nicely. And it makes Sunday different than every other day, right? It's like, oh, we had church yesterday and we did communion. So there's definitely a reference point there.
Yeah, that's good, Jamie. And one of the things that has happened with us is we found that we've connected with friends even more, because while it's kind of a chore to align schedules and arrange babysitters and meet up with other families and make all that work, that's important for sure, but that's on hold right now. Yep. But it's pretty easy just to dial up somebody's number and FaceTime them immediately and have their whole family right there. We know that we have about a 90% chance of somebody being home and all their kids at the same time too. So we've been calling people up that we haven't spoke to in a while and just connecting on the phone, and all the kids get involved, and that's been really fun. So it's allowed for more opportunities to connect with more people.
Michael, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I'll give my wife credit where credit's due. She had this idea that in the schedule we built for our kids in this new normal we have, the 4 to 5:30 range has some ideas of what we can do, and one of which is connect with a relative or friend via FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, whatever you have, just because that is the time, like Chris, you were saying, where you're at the soccer field. My girls are into dance, and we're running them around, and no one's home at the same time. So now we're all home. We get to check in with the parents, check in with the friends, and see each other when we've normally not done that. So it's been a really kind of nice added bonus to have that extra time.
I love those examples of you guys taking really an approach that says we want to be intentional and reaching out to these family, friends, relatives, whatever, and getting the kids involved, because you're right. 90% of the time, you're going to find a family that's all home, and you get time to engage in that way. And it's a good type of example of replacing something where I think we're all realizing that a lot of families, we've been in a rat race, right, for a long time. And we can fill our schedule with seemingly interesting, good activities like sports and church and whatever extracurricular stuff you might throw in there. But we're all realizing now we are getting a lot more time together, face to face, hearing from each other, experiencing things together. And so it's just a great opportunity to take what is it that you've maybe missed or has been taken from your schedule, and what do you want to replace that with that's intentional, that's going to be motivating for everybody to be involved.
It's powerful to schedule a call with somebody and intentionally connect with them. I was on the phone earlier today with Roger, a mutual friend of ours. I'm definitely sensing that there's a deeper level of connectedness amongst friends because we're all going through this together. It's powerful. I'm feeling a deeper level of connection with people that I've spoken to on a weekly basis just because of what we're going through. So pretty awesome.
That's a good point, Jamie. One of the other things that I wanted to add to how we're replacing former activities with being intentional at first this wasn't intentional in our house, but we have been cooking a heck of a lot more in the house, right? We were normally maybe grabbing a meal out once or twice a week, depending on how busy the week was, sometimes even more. Now we're able to cook together, and we happen to have older children, 13 and 8. So Michael, maybe a little more difficult for you to cook meals with your whole team, but I know you do that often and have food fights like you had this past weekend. But my wife and I have been cooking a ton together, which is nice. And I'm normally the sous chef or the prep cook, but my kids have been involved as well. So whether it be cooking or cooking dinner or lunch or baking, things like that, really just having that margin time to do that as a family where it's one of us with that responsibility trying to get a meal on the table, we're able to kind of share in how important it is to just prep the meal together and then pray for it and then enjoy it together.
Yeah, that's a great example, Jason. We've been doing the same thing because we are in the same boat in terms of being typically once, twice a week. We're eating out on the run, before or after soccer or whatever it's going to be, and it's just been so fun to cook more together and actually giving the kids more leeway to cook for us. This is something we just got our kitchen finished like last week. So literally like an hour before this call, the kids were like, "Hey, can we make lunch for you guys?" And so, chili mac and cheese was on the menu, cooked by a 4, 7, and 9-year-old. And they're having a blast. I think tonight they're going to make burritos for it. So it's just fun to have this space where we can connect in those kind of unique ways. And really that brings us to point number 3, and the third way to maximize family time is to be spontaneous. So we have already talked about number 1, setting a schedule, finding some kind of routine for this new normal. Number 2, replacing some of those former activities that are not on your calendar. And number 3, being spontaneous. And I've seen you guys do this, and I want to just shout out to Michael and tell us a little bit about some of the spontaneous activities that's been going on in the McGreevy household recently.
Absolutely. This is the fun part for me. If anything, I struggle with the routine part, and I'm needing to work on that side. So when it comes to coming up with crazy ideas and implementing them immediately, sign me up. So I didn't even tell my kids, but this past Friday, I talked with Lydia just so she was prepared and knew that the kitchen was going to be absolutely destroyed. I told her, we're just going to have no rules whatsoever, and I'm going to start throwing large amounts of ingredients at everybody. And she's like, sounds awesome. I'm in. And so kids are helping making the dough for the pizza. We're just kind of casually hanging out as a family. I say casually, but we have young kids. So it was pretty crazy already. But then I just grabbed a fistful of flour and just chucked it at my 5-year-old son's face. And it just was like a big smoke bomb explosion. And he was so shocked that I had done that, because I'm always telling him, like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. But we just let the rules all fly by the wayside. And I told him, like, you can throw some back at me if you want. It's no rules here. So then Lydia's throwing flour. My kids are grabbing flour out of the bag and throwing it at each other. My 2-year-old son's got a pile of flour on his head, starting to get it in his eyes a little bit. It was out of control, but we had such a fun time. And there was a mess everywhere. But we all cleaned it up together afterward, and that's a memory I know none of us will forget. So I love these opportunities when we can just pull away all the rules, all the structure, and just be crazy and let it all out. And I know those are the moments that we're going to remember the most as a family.
That's good. Yeah, I love seeing the kids take the flour and dump it on Lydia. That was pretty funny. You were like, "Let's get mama." And they're all like attacked her. That was good.
Yeah, man. Sometimes the spirit just moves you. A song comes on and it's dance party time. Everybody join in. You pull your kids' arms and come on, dance with me. Sometimes it's a costume party. Maybe you pull something out from your closet that you haven't worn for a long time, an old football uniform or a wig or something else, and you come out as a character and start messing around with your family in that way. Or you could put on a play too. You could make your kid be each kid be a different character, and you could perform something like some kind of theatrical performance there are so many cool things you can do if you're just willing to let your guard down and go all in, even if it's going to be awkward, even if it's going to be silly. That's what it's all about.
I love that. One idea that we had that I think the boys are going to do in our household is set up a night later this week for a fine dining experience at our house.
Ooh.
We are going to cook the meal and serve as like little maitre d's. We each have our own little suits we could wear. Put on an invitation for the girls to say, hey, get dressed up just like you're going out to a nice fine dining meal, dress up for a wedding, whatever it's going to be. And then have just this fun experience because, hey, you can't go out to fine dining right now, so let's do it indoors.
That's a great idea.
And another one that we're going to do, and again, this will come out after we do it, so I'm not like giving us a secret away, but I just went to Home Depot this morning and got one of those big packs of water balloons. And just to have a big water balloon fight outdoors, just randomly, like we'll probably start it with like, hey, somebody come outside, and then someone ambushes one, and then it's like game on. So we're looking forward to some things like that where we can just be spontaneous because you've got a little more time in your schedule to be spontaneous.
Yeah, and I love what you guys are saying, that it's spontaneous, but it's well thought out. Michael communicated with Lydia. It probably wouldn't have worked if he just was like, okay, we're going to trash the kitchen. But the fact that they made it this memorable event. And there's all sorts of creative ways that we can do that. As you guys know, the Airbnb, the Franklin Perch, all of our bookings got canceled because of this coronavirus. And so one thing that we did last week is we surprised the kids. We had a little party up there. We watched the episode of Little House on the Prairie. And it was very special because this place was off limits. Is you kind of pull the rug out from underneath the kids and let them experience something that's abnormal.
Jamie, you're right here too, that it is a little bit of forethought that needs to happen. And so like I've used this terminology before around my wife. She's like, what? But this idea of planned spontaneity, like it sounds like an oxymoron, right? But really, if you have some time and you say like, hey, I have a plan that next Tuesday night, we're going to have this just like spontaneous water balloon fight. To your point, right? If there's no water balloons around, how can you do that? So go get them and like just kind of have that plan. Maybe you don't bring everyone into that plan so that it is spontaneous to most. Similarly this morning, we have we're already working from home, homeschooling for the last, how many years. So a lot of this doesn't totally affect our normal routine of life. And typically our work and school schedule is fairly rigid, but we were talking as a couple this weekend saying, the best hours of the day here in Florida right now, as it's getting warmer already, is the morning time. It's like, why start our school at 8:30 or 9 o'clock when maybe we could take a little extra longer walk or drive down to the beach and walk along there or whatever. And so we, this morning we took like an hour right after breakfast, just go do a family PE in our yard here. We had a family wiffle ball game, and just we're like, you know what, let's just kind of rip up this past schedule that we had and make it a little more flexible to what's going on in our lives right now.
3s and 7s love to break rules, right? So we're all on the same page with that one. Can I get a witness? Maybe not. No, maybe. No.
Amen. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is as we've talked about in previous episodes, that's important is being spontaneous with your wife, right? But now we're all kind of on lockdown. You can't go and be spontaneous and take dinner or take her someplace for a weekend and sweep her off her feet. But being able to be spontaneous enough, maybe like we were saying, planning, talk to the kids, say, hey, mommy and daddy, you're going to have a date night tonight, which means that it's just like if we're gone, like if we went out to dinner, we're not here. So you can kind of set them up, make sure that they're taken care of and do what they have to do. And then you guys can have your own kind of, whether it's dinner or whether it's just watching a movie, go to a separate spot and just be spontaneous in that way. Because that there is probably a lot of folks that are listening that are going to say, I have a small backyard. I can only go one room or the other. The kids are everywhere, right? So planning to be spontaneous, maybe don't let your wife in on that plan, but do something like that where you can kind of keep mixing things up.
That's a great one, Jason. I'm going to steal that because I think it's one where like right now, babysitters are like not even working because people are like, I don't even know if I should have someone else in my house. So like giving the kids the leeway to say, all right, hey, we're going to consider this a date night. You guys, here's some food for you. Here's a little popcorn to throw in the microwave and a movie to go into that other room. And we're going to go over here and kind of have our own little date night experience. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I know McGreevy's probably rubbing his head because his kids are really young, but like my kids and yours, Niemeyer, they're old enough that they don't need to be babysat all the time. And now is a time for us to be really creative. Sorry about that, Mike. Maybe you can put a movie on for them and do a mini version of a date night, but I think...
Jamie, it's called Door Locks.
I mean, what does this make possible, right? We could do our best version of date night at home, but it's going to take some planning, I think.
That's right. Well, we've been talking a lot about these 3 ways to maximize family time during this unprecedented season of life that we're all in. And so what about you? You know, when it comes to this coronavirus pandemic season and the extra time you have together as a family, what steps are you going to take to ensure this is a memorable experience? So start there at number 1, setting a schedule and a routine, identifying some of those areas, workout, meals together, whatever that's going to be, to schedule some things in your calendar that gives a framework that you can plan around. And then number 2, replacing those former activities with intentionality. I know that 10 years from now, if you were to look back and ask your kids, what was one of the more favorite school years that you had or teachers you might have had? I'm going to predict that most kids will say, it's that year in 2020 when you got to be my teacher, my tutor, my activities director. Because right now you have a very special season where you're in charge of a lot of your kids' time. But you've got to be intentional to make it as meaningful and as special as it can be. So take that time now. Take out your calendar. Do what you got to do. Talk with your wife about making these moments special for great family time.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. Visit EFMLife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.